Hi there. I'm glad to welcome you to my channel, World of Stories. I have a lot of interesting life stories that I want to share with you. Enjoy listening.
Christmas Eve stopped being quiet and peaceful. The weather turned nasty, scaring the residents nearly to death. The snowstorm covered not only the country roads but also started to affect the nearby highway. In some places, it was no longer visible. Meteorologists gave no reassuring forecasts for the coming days. They advised residents, city and village guests alike, to stay home and avoid traveling by personal vehicles. Adam listened to his favorite radio station and admired the scenery flashing by his car window. These meteorologists never get the forecast right. Is this supposed to be a storm? He thought, smirking. Tiny white flakes gently covered the ground, with no hint of a snowstorm. His thoughts were interrupted by an incoming call on his phone. "Oh, Marta, why are you calling me every 5 minutes?" Adam thought, cursing out loud. "Marta, what is it now?" he asked sharply as he answered the call. The woman hesitated, not expecting Adam's irritated voice. "Adam, why are you talking to me like this? I'm always alone. Alone on New Year's, alone on Christmas. These aren't holidays, they're a nightmare. Marta, you're acting like a child. You know I take any job to make your dream come true. Besides, you said your mom and daughter would visit. And I asked your opinion about this side job. What did you say?" "Forgotten?" he asked, softening his tone a bit. "Yes, Adam, you asked. But I thought you'd still manage to come back for Christmas. What's wrong with having a dream? And who but you should make it come true?" "Marta, I don't like your tone. Why are you angry?" "Fine, forget the money, I'll come home." Marta realized she'd gone too far. Adam coming home could ruin all her plans. "Oh, Adam, forgive me. I just missed you so much." "Don't worry, don't rush, you won't make it in time for the holiday anyway," she said as sweetly as she could. "Yeah, you're right. All right, I'll get some rest, I'll hit the road early tomorrow. I won't be back before the 10th. Say hi to your future mother-in-law. Love you, sweetie. And I love you, darling." Putting his phone aside, Adam smiled. This is going to be a surprise, he thought and stepped on the gas. Marta had a difficult personality. From the first days of their acquaintance, she had presented herself as a strong-willed woman. Adam initially didn't pay her much attention, even though she was quite attractive. Marta had joined their freight company as an accountant, and since then, the men at the company couldn't stop thinking about her. They flocked to her like bees to honey, only to be met with her sharp and rude demeanor. It wasn't surprising, Marta had recently divorced her husband and was raising a young daughter alone. Adam treated her solely as a colleague, without showing her any special attention or making compliments, unlike the other drivers who tried to get her into bed. Perhaps this indifference is what caught Marta's attention. A few years ago, at a New Year's corporate party, Adam noticed Marta crying in a corner of the banquet hall. She was wiping tears streaming down her cheeks. Though Adam was afraid to approach the unapproachable beauty, he couldn't leave her in such a state. They struck up a conversation, and to Adam's surprise, Marta was receptive. Before long, they were chatting easily like old friends. That marked the beginning of their friendship, which eventually turned into a relationship, and a year later, the couple decided to live together. Adam brought Marta to his bachelor apartment. Surprisingly, Marta decided to leave her 3-year-old daughter with her mother, claiming that having another man around could traumatize the child. Adam didn't fully understand this logic but didn't interfere, thinking a mother knows best. However, after moving into Adam's apartment, Marta seemed to forget about her daughter's existence, not bringing her home or visiting her. The couple lived together for only a year, but to Adam, it felt like an eternity. Marta was demanding and uncompromising, always pursuing her goals and nagging Adam if she couldn't achieve them herself. On their first anniversary, Marta asked for a car. Adam didn't have that kind of money, as most of his earnings went towards Marta's whims. He couldn't understand why he kept indulging this woman, not feeling true love and avoiding marriage due to past experiences. Still, he decided to meet Marta's car request, needing just a little more money to make her happy, as she did create a semblance of a home for him. Adam had lost faith in love years ago after meeting his first wife. He was 20, she was 30. The older woman easily captivated the young man. A month later, they married in secret and went to the seaside. Eventually, Antonia gave birth to a daughter, and Adam immersed himself in his family. But one day, coming home, he found his wife and child gone. A note on the table asked him not to search for them, to forget everything and start anew. This was a heavy blow for Adam. He quit college, stopped going to work, and shut himself off from the world. His parents, upon learning of his plight, rushed to his aid. Their love and care helped him recover, but things were never the same. Adam spent some time at his parents' farm, away from the city's hustle. Mr. and Mrs. Bronson were renowned farmers, owning several butcher shops and building a large house for their family. Years later, Adam decided to return to the city. Mrs. Bronson cried bitterly, fearing her son would meet another wrong woman. But Adam reassured her, saying things would be different. If he ever married again, it would be to someone willing to follow him to the ends of the earth. He also promised to bring his future wife to his hometown and be happy with her. Since the drama Adam experienced, 15 years had passed. During these years, he never met anyone who could melt the ice in his heart. Marta couldn't fill the void in Adam's soul, but he enjoyed her company. With her strong character, life was never dull or boring. This time, Adam decided to surprise his fiancée. He told Marta he wouldn't be home for the holiday, explaining that he had a side job that paid well. He thought Marta would approve of the news since she loved money. In reality, Adam was returning from a trip with the remaining amount needed to buy Marta her dream car. He smiled, imagining the surprise and delight on Marta's face when she saw her Christmas gift. His happy thoughts were interrupted by a sudden snowstorm. He recalled the weather forecast warning of a snowstorm. Visibility worsened, and the wind howled through the cab. Adam shivered as the icy air hit him. In an instant, the dark sky blended with the ground, and a thick curtain of snow approached his truck. Adam slowed down, the road was covered in minutes. The radio was silent, and the strong wind disrupted his mobile signal. As an experienced driver, his first instinct was to stop and wait out the storm. But remembering how trucks had been buried in snow and needed multiple rescue vehicles, he decided against it. His truck began to skid on the snow-covered road, swerving uncontrollably. Seeing a road sign ahead indicating a village just 2 kilometers away, he made a smooth maneuver and turned off the highway. The narrow road between 2 fields was heavily snowed in, and Adam regretted his decision. He now had to avoid veering off the road and getting stuck in the fields. The truck crawled at 10 kilometers per hour, leaving deep ruts behind. After 5 minutes of arduous driving, Adam gritted his teeth, trying not to scream as he struggled to stop the sliding truck on what felt like an ice rink. Through the blizzard, he suddenly saw a small figure. He feared the worst but managed to stop the truck in time by releasing the gas pedal and gently braking. Angry and relieved, Adam jumped out of the cab, only to sink knee-deep into a snowdrift. The wind was fierce, and snowflakes turned into ice pellets, stinging his cheeks and making it hard to keep his eyes open. "Are you crazy? Where did you come from?" Adam shouted angrily. There was no response. The headlight illuminated the small figure of a boy. Adam froze in shock, unable to speak. "Hey, kid, what are you doing out here in this storm? Get in the cab." The boy, with hands stiff from the cold and cheeks flushed red, tried to say something but was so frozen he couldn't make a sound. Adam scooped the child into his arms and, with some effort, managed to get him inside the warm cab of the truck. "Warm up now. Take off those mittens, they're all icy. Here, have some warm tea, sip it slowly. How did you end up here? Where's your home?" Adam handed the boy a cup of tea poured from a thermos. The boy clumsily tried to take the cup, but his hands wouldn't cooperate. Adam helped him drink, holding the cup to his lips. The boy started crying but still couldn't speak, likely from hypothermia. He was trying hard to speak, looking anxiously out the window as if searching for someone in the darkness. "Mr. Mama. My mom is out there, the boy suddenly whispered faintly. Oh, you're warming up already. What did you say? Adam leaned closer, offering his ear. Mom's in the snow, please help her, the boy pleaded. The words hit Adam like a jolt of electricity. So, you're with your mom. That's quite a walk you had, nothing to say about that. Can't see a thing, point to where your mom is. Stunned by the situation, Adam couldn't understand what a woman and child were doing out in the snowy fields so late. All right, kid, stay here and warm up. Get in the back, you can lie down and cover yourself with the blanket. I'll go find your mom. What's your name? Oscar, the boy whispered. All right, Oscar, don't cry. Stay here, have some tea and cookies. I'll find your mom and bring her back to you. The frightened boy nodded in agreement. Adam looked at Oscar's tear-streaked face and thought to himself what he would do if he couldn't find the woman in this snowstorm. With a heavy heart, Adam braced himself against the cold, jumped into the snowdrift from the cab, and set off in the direction Oscar had indicated. For a while, he searched in vain for the woman, feeling increasingly hopeless amid the high snowdrifts and powerful wind that blew large snowflakes in his face. Just when he thought all hope was lost, he spotted a figure on the snow. Seeing that the figure was moving, trying to stand up, Adam breathed a sigh of relief. It was clearly Oscar's mother. He made his way quickly toward the struggling figure in the snow. Walking was difficult, the woman was about 100 meters off the dirt road in a field. Finally reaching her, Adam tried to help her stand, but it was futile. Her legs were too frozen to hold her, and she could barely speak. Leave me, save my son, please, she murmured, barely moving her lips. Adam understood that she wouldn't be able to walk to the truck. He picked her up and hurried to reassure her. Don't worry, your son is fine. He sent me to find you. Oscar is in the truck, worried and waiting for you. After hearing this, the woman began to lose consciousness. No, don't sleep, you can't sleep now. We're almost at the truck. Once Adam was back in the cab of his truck and starting to warm up, he was amazed at how he had managed to accomplish this difficult task. How had he found her and carried her through knee-deep snow? Seeing the crying woman hugging her son with frostbitten hands made Adam feel deeply sorry for them. It was clear that they didn't end up in the field by accident, something terrible must have happened to them, causing them to flee. Adam sat silently for a while. The wind was gradually dying down, and the snowfall wasn't as intense. The woman, warming up and realizing they were safe, awkwardly wiped the tears from her cheeks and looked Adam in the eyes. Thank you. You saved us. I'm still in shock. I've never been in a situation like this. What's your name? You really should go to the hospital, said Adam, realizing with horror that they might have frostbite on their hands and feet. I need to get to the city, my sister lives there. I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Lauren, and this is my son Oscar. I'm Adam. Lauren, can you tell me what happened? How did you end up here? How can I help you and your son? Adam asked, furrowing his brow as he looked at the tear-streaked face of the young woman. Lauren sighed heavily, and tears began to flow from the painful memories of her difficult life. The young woman looked into the eyes of a complete stranger and, for the first time in a long while, saw so much kindness and compassion that she unexpectedly began to tell her story. I don't even know where to start. Lauren, let's switch to first names. And since we're in no rush until this snowstorm passes, why don't you start from the beginning? Don't cry, I'll take you and your son to the city. Who do you have there? Are you from around here? Thank you so much for not letting us freeze. If it weren't for you, we would have died. I'm not local, fate played a cruel joke on me. It first gave me hope for a happy future, then turned my present into a nightmare. Adam listened carefully to Lauren's story, and with each word, the boy clung tighter and tighter to his mother. Once, Lauren lived in her own apartment in the capital and couldn't have imagined in her worst nightmare that she would end up in such a terrible situation as now. Lauren buried her father, and soon after, her mother passed away as well. At that time, Lauren was only 20 years old. She didn't shy away from the difficulties and went through a challenging journey, knocking on the doors of heartless officials to gain custody of her younger sister Vanessa, who was not yet of legal age. The lives of the two sisters were tough. Lauren finished culinary school and got a job as a chef in a restaurant where her talent for creating exquisite dishes from seemingly simple ingredients was highly appreciated. The salary was high, and Lauren took on any extra work she could find. On weekends, she baked cakes to order. Local cafes near her home were regular customers for her muffins and pastries. While Lauren managed all the household responsibilities, Vanessa spent her days and evenings carefree with her friends. Lauren felt sorry for her younger sister. She knew how much their mother loved her, worrying that she was entirely dependent and might struggle to achieve anything in life. "She's like a child. Our only hope is you, Lauren. You're the older sister, never abandon our little girl," her mother had said shortly before her death. Back then, Lauren hadn't paid much attention to these words, but after the funeral, the phrase kept resurfacing in her mind. Lauren felt it was her duty to protect her younger sister, shielding her from life's difficulties and anything unpleasant that might upset her. Perhaps this was her fatal mistake. Vanessa grew up selfish, taking everything Lauren did for granted. She never lifted a finger to help her sister, who spent her days at work and nights in the kitchen, fulfilling additional orders so that Vanessa never knew what it was to want for anything. One day, something happened that Lauren never expected. When Vanessa turned 20, she announced she was getting married. "Lauren, you need to understand, I won't be able to arrange my life the way I want if you're always around. And Gary won't move in with me because you live here," Vanessa told her sister one day. Lauren nearly cried from the hurt and pain. "Vanessa, what are you suggesting? Do you want me to leave the house, vacating the apartment for your Gary? Where am I supposed to go? Why don't you cry about it? Go ahead, blame me for the bread I eat. I don't want to be an old maid like you. I want to live with my loved one, not with you. Is that what you think? I don't think, I'm saying it directly. Do what your conscience tells you. My happiness depends on you now." Lauren left to think things over in the fresh air. She wandered the city streets for a long time, wondering how things had turned out this way in her life, with her beloved younger sister, whom she had nurtured and protected, growing up so heartless. In that moment of despair and hopelessness, Lauren met her future husband, Tony. If only she had known what this encounter would lead to, she would have avoided that ill-fated city street. Tony immediately knew that Lauren was the girl he needed. She was unlike the city girls with their heavy makeup and provocative clothing. Talking with her, he was struck by the naivety and simplicity of the city dweller's soul. Lauren accepted the stranger's offer to have coffee nearby. During their conversation, she told him everything about her life, perhaps driven by her despair. Tony, 5 years older than Lauren, had extensive experience dealing with women and found the right words of support. Everything happened as if in a fog. Tony told her he lived in a village with his mother, worked in the city on a rotational basis, and had long dreamed of meeting a pure, unspoiled girl like her. He felt fate had brought them together at just the right time. Lauren met Tony for only a week but felt like she had known him forever. Meanwhile, Vanessa didn't say a word to her sister at home, clearly showing that she was an unnecessary part of her life. Therefore, Lauren, without hesitation, agreed to move to the village with Tony. At that moment, he was the only one who understood her and accepted her as she was. Lauren quit her beloved job and decided to trust fate and start a new chapter in her life. Seeing her sister packing her bags, Vanessa beamed with a smile. "Sister, well, now you've found your happiness too. Don't sulk. This is your home, so come back anytime. Gary and I will be happy to see you." Lauren left the house with tears in her eyes. It was so painful and hurtful that she had become unnecessary to the only person she had in the world. "Be happy," Lauren said as she left. Mrs. Haley Thompson, Tony's mother, greeted her son's bride with cold indifference. From the very first day, Mrs. Thompson made it clear who was in charge of the house. Lauren should have left that godforsaken village immediately, but she hoped that once Mrs. Thompson got to know her better, her attitude would change. But once again, a miracle didn't happen. Tony was in a rush to get married. His mother complained daily about what people were saying behind their backs, that he had brought a girl into the house and was living with her. I don't know how things are done in the city, but here in the village, a decent girl only steps over the threshold of a man's house after marriage. Shame on you. Mrs. Thompson, we explained the situation to you. And I'm not doing anything shameful. I see that you sleep in separate rooms. But people think I've allowed debauchery in my house. You, dear, keep quiet and listen to what you're told. You came into my house, not the other way around. So, listen up. Lauren's first instinct after hearing this was to go back home to the city. She called Vanessa, hoping for support, but instead heard her cold voice. Are you kidding? Gary just moved in. How do you expect us to live with you in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment? Lauren, figure out your life and stop bothering me. No one here is waiting for you. Stop trying to make me feel guilty. We're adults now. Everyone for themselves. After these words, Lauren cried for a long time, locked in her room. Then Tony came and tried to console her. Don't worry, my mother's got a bad temper. But she doesn't mean you any harm. She just wants everything to be proper. Once we get married, no one will say a bad word to you. Tony, I'm scared. Don't be. Everything will get better. Then came the wedding, with many guests Lauren had never seen before. Mrs. Thompson loved to show off to the neighbors how well things were going for her. However, she didn't hesitate to scold her daughter-in-law. Lucky? He brought a girl from the city with no family or background, in just one pair of pants. She can't do anything, just sleeps all day, and I have to do everything around the house. There wasn't a grain of truth in these statements, but Mrs. Thompson lied so convincingly that it was hard not to believe her. After the celebration, Lauren hoped to finally rest. She desperately wanted to sleep, and her head was pounding. But her mother-in-law had other plans. Listen, Tony is already asleep. He got so drunk he barely made it to bed. Must be from happiness, Mrs. Thompson said unkindly and added, I'm exhausted too. Something's hurting in my side, probably my liver. Anyway, clear the tables of food and dirty dishes. People will come for a hangover tomorrow, and this place is a mess. Lauren almost cried but didn't argue. By dawn, she had just finished cleaning the wedding tent and sighed with relief when Tony suddenly stormed out of the house. He was furious. Where have you been? Still not done partying, he yelled and quickly approached his terrified wife. Tony was drunk, though he had slept almost until morning, but he wasn't sober. He slapped Lauren hard, then again and again. She tried to stop him, but it only made him angrier. Tony grabbed her by the hair and dragged her into the house. While the helpless girl screamed desperately for help, hoping her mother-in-law would intervene, Mrs. Thompson watched her son's actions from the window with a satisfied smile. She believed her son was doing the right thing by reminding his wife of her place. Lauren's cries and pleas for help didn't stop for several hours, and Haley had no intention of intervening. She was proud of her son, believing he was doing the right thing. The next day, Lauren didn't come out. Her face was marked with bruises from her husband, and her body ached terribly, with not a single spot left unscathed. Tony, waking up after the debacle, felt some regret for treating his wife this way on their wedding night but didn't express much remorse. Lauren, don't worry, everything will heal soon. I just woke up and you weren't there. What was I supposed to think? It won't happen again. I was just jealous. I love you, understand, the man justified himself. That was when Lauren first wondered what love was, and if this was indeed it, she didn't want any part of it. In her husband's house, Lauren became more like a servant. All household chores fell on her shoulders, cooking, cleaning, doing laundry, fetching water, feeding the pigs, chickens, and other livestock. Despite Lauren handling all the chores well, Mrs. Thompson was constantly displeased with her daughter-in-law. No matter how much I teach you, you're still useless. You're used to doing nothing in the city and thought you could live the same way here. Well, darling, that won't work. I worked as a chef in the city. I baked cakes to order. I want to work in my profession, not haul manure all day. Tomorrow I'll go to the district center and try to get a job. And if that doesn't work out, I'll find a job in the city. Tony and I can work shifts and come home together, Lauren blurted out one day. Mrs. Thompson barely contained her rage, refraining from attacking her ungrateful daughter-in-law. You don't like hauling manure, do you? Look at you, all high and mighty. What kind of chef are you? The food you make isn't even fit for dogs. You think you have a profession? Just wait until my son comes back and hears about your plans. He'll put you in your place and knock this nonsense out of your head. Now go feed the pigs, they're screaming their heads off, chef. Lauren hoped her husband would understand and support her plans. But no. When Tony returned, he listened to his wife in silence, then to his mother's complaints, and gave his verdict. What work? Isn't there enough work at home? Do you want my mother to do everything while you're in the city showing off? I'm the man in the family, and I earn enough. We're not poor. Your place is here, like any woman's. Cooking and taking care of the house. I don't have any money. Lauren, there's money with my mother, and she buys everything we need. Don't make me angry. I've said everything. A month later, after another argument, Lauren realized she was pregnant. She didn't know whether to cry or be happy. Tony had completely lost interest in her, only demanding royal treatment for marital duties when he returned home from his shifts. When he was away for work, he never called her. When she called him, Tony was cold and asked her not to bother him with trivial matters. Throughout her pregnancy, Lauren continued working around the house and farm as before. Her mother-in-law gave her no leeway, and even when her belly grew too big, Mrs. Thompson showed no mercy. I was carrying sacks of beets in my 9th month, and here you are, pregnant, expecting me to carry you around the yard? Mrs. Thompson would say whenever Lauren complained about how hard it was to manage all the chores. Tony supported his mother and had no pity for his wife. He thought that everyone lived like this, and his wife was no exception. Lauren gave birth to Oscar in excruciating pain. For 2 days, Mrs. Thompson watched her daughter-in-law writhe in labor pains without doing anything. Eventually, she called in some midwives, hoping they would manage. However, upon seeing the desperate state of the laboring woman, the midwives insisted on immediately calling for an ambulance. Realizing the potential legal repercussions, Haley finally called for medical help. Tony learned he had a son only upon returning home. His mother didn't think it necessary to bother him with what she considered trivial news. He'll find out when he gets home. No need to bother Tony, he's already shouldering everything. Now there's a baby to deal with too, Mrs. Thompson told Lauren, taking her phone away under the pretext of preventing theft when the ambulance arrived. Lauren didn't remember Tony's number by heart, but she did remember Vanessa's. Borrowing a phone from a kind nurse, she called her sister. The number was unreachable. She couldn't get through to her sister a week later, or even a year later. With the birth of her son, her life turned into a miserable existence. Her mother-in-law was relentless, constantly complaining about the babies crying day and night. Tony became a rare visitor at home, now only staying for a few days at a time, claiming he had a lot of work. During his brief visits, his mother would whisper that the child didn't resemble them at all. This angered Tony, who took out his frustration on his wife and young son. Lauren lived like a servant for 4 long years. Then, out of the blue, she found out that Tony had been living in the city with another woman. Everything suddenly made sense to her. She tried to call Vanessa, hoping to return home with her son, but her sister's number was still unreachable. When Mrs. Thompson realized that her daughter-in-law knew the truth about her son's affair, she stopped holding back, exploiting the situation knowing Lauren had nowhere to go. Many villagers sympathized with Lauren, and one elderly woman even offered her and her son a place in her home. Lauren hesitated, the village was small and she feared gossip. Then, something significant happened. Oscar turned 4. For the first time in a long while, Lauren felt truly happy. She was offered a job as a sales clerk in the village store, and she gladly accepted. Mrs. Thompson allowed her to work but only on the condition that she continued to handle all the household chores. Lauren agreed to anything just to escape the hateful house and earn her own money. Another year passed. Mrs. Thompson refused to look after her grandson, considering her daughter-in-law's job to be a break. Since there was no kindergarten in the village, Lauren took Oscar with her to work. The boy didn't bother her, he sat quietly, occupied with his own activities, often helping his mother arrange the goods. As New Year's approached, Lauren bought gifts for everyone and returned home in high spirits. Working outside had noticeably improved her appearance. Her wardrobe had new clothes, her makeup bag was refreshed with new items. But these changes didn't please her mother-in-law, who continued to turn her son against his wife, inventing a non-existent lover and lying about Lauren neglecting their son and household duties. Tony promised his mother he would come and sort things out. As she approached her mother-in-law's house, Lauren heard her son crying. He had stayed home with his grandmother that day at her insistence. A sense of foreboding overwhelmed her, and she quickened her pace. Entering the house, Lauren was taken aback. Tony was sitting at the table with an unfamiliar woman. They were eating, drinking, and laughing with her son. "Stop crying like a mama's boy and recite a poem or something," Tony's voice echoed. "Forget about a poem, son. This flirt has completely forgotten about her child. She has her own wild life and doesn't care about her son or the house. Look at the time, it's already 7 o'clock. Where has she been?" Mrs. Thompson added, pointing at the clock. Tony turned red with anger. At that moment, Oscar, hearing his mother being unjustly accused, tried to defend her. But his father ordered him to be quiet and not leave his room until given permission. That's when the gifts Lauren was holding fell to the floor with a loud crash. She could endure all the unwarranted aggression and contempt towards herself, but she would never allow anyone to hurt her son. The noise brought Tony back. Seeing his wife, he whistled. Mother was right. Look at you, all dressed up in fashion and made up like a city lady. Found yourself a rich lover while living off my mother? I haven't lived off your mother in a long time. I've worked hard in this house all these years and paid my dues. Unlike you, I haven't been looking for anyone, Lauren said, shifting her gaze to Tony's companion. The woman sitting there smiled, watching the scene with interest. Pack your things and get out of here, you worthless hen. And take your brat with you. Mother was right, you probably had him with someone else. He doesn't look like any of us. Without escalating the situation, Lauren gathered her son, packed their belongings into a bag, and headed for the door, holding Oscar's hand. Mrs. Thompson was stunned. She was sure that her daughter-in-law had nowhere to go and would beg her and Tony to let them stay, but that wasn't the case. It was as if Lauren had woken up, realizing what kind of life she was subjecting her son to, living with such a father and grandmother. Tony, it's nighttime outside. Where will she go with the child? And who will help me with the chores? Haley said, thinking out loud. Lauren smirked. Happy New Year, Mrs. Thompson. The gifts are by the door. Thank you for everything. I should have left earlier, but it's better late than never. Don't worry, Tony has brought a new bride into the house, she can help you. Yeah, right, the woman at the table with Tony scoffed. Looks like you all have a lot of fun here. This life isn't for me, I'm used to something different. Tony glared at his wife, then looked at his mother. Well, you got what you wanted. It's your house now. Lauren won't be coming back. I know her well, she can endure a lot, but once she makes a decision, there's no turning back. Mrs. Thompson started picking up the gifts Lauren had thrown on the floor. Tony's companion looked at his mother in confusion while Tony silently walked out into the yard. He watched as his wife and son hurriedly walked away from the house down the snowy street. Lauren headed straight for kind-hearted Grandma Ellison, who had often offered her and her son a room in her home. Despite the late hour and living alone, the elderly woman was still awake. When Lauren knocked on her door, she immediately opened it. Oh, what dear guests. Come in, you're always welcome. The new year is coming soon, we'll celebrate it together. Lauren lived with the kind and lonely woman for a week. The store was open for 3 days during that time, and many people came by. Everyone was curious about what had happened on New Year's Eve at Mrs. Thompson's house. Lauren didn't speak on the matter, but the villagers already knew and saw everything. Most supported Lauren and condemned Haley and Tony's actions, though there were a few who took pleasure in the young mother's misfortune. Tony showed up at the store on January 6th, the day before Christmas. He was drunk and insisted on speaking with Lauren. She was afraid to be alone with him and tried to get him to leave the store. Local residents came to her aid, shaming Tony and mentioning his mother. With no other choice, he eventually left, cursing as he went. After closing the store, Lauren hurried back to Grandma Ellison's house. A festive table awaited her there, and the lady of the house's son was eagerly waiting. Oscar paced the room, glancing out the window at the lamplit road, hoping to see his mother. But she wasn't there. Grandma Ellison was worried too. The store closed at 4, and Lauren was usually home by dark. But today, she was very late. After a while, Lauren burst through the door. Bloodstains marked her face, her lips and nose were bruised and bleeding. Mommy. Oscar screamed in horror, rushing to his mother when he saw the state she was in. The boy started crying. Grandma Ellison quickly moved Lauren away from the door and locked it. Just as she did, a heavy bang followed, then another and another. "Open up, old lady, I came for my wife." There was no doubt it was Tony, and he had no intention of leaving empty-handed. "All right, dear," dress Oscar warmly and run to the highway through the field. "Catch a ride to the city and get to your sister. I'll give you some money. Just hurry. This brute won't leave without a fight." "I'm scared for you and Oscar," said the elderly woman, bracing the door with a nearby dresser. "And you? Tony's not in his right mind, he might harm you. Don't worry about me. I've dealt with a brute like him for half my life. I can handle myself. Now, run, children." Lauren quickly dressed her son warmly, took only her documents and earnings, and climbed out of the window facing away from the house entrance. She then helped Grandma Ellison pass Oscar through the window. "Thank you. I'll never forget your kindness. Take care of yourself. Run, dear, run." Lauren, holding Oscar's hand tightly, ran towards the highway near their village. Meanwhile, Grandma Ellison armed herself with a rolling pin and stood by the door, ready for when the brute would break it down. When Tony finally broke the lock and stormed in, the elderly woman struck him on the head with the rolling pin. Tony howled in pain and surprise, losing balance and collapsing motionless on the floor. Grandma Ellison was momentarily stunned. She quickly threw on her coat and ran out into the quiet, deserted street, raising an alarm. Concerned neighbors emerged from their warm homes and rushed to help. Grandma Ellison explained what Tony had done, and the villagers, without waiting for him to regain consciousness, tied him up hand and foot. They called the local officer, expressing their outrage at Tony's behavior. The men began repairing the lock on the elderly woman's door, while the women listened to Grandma Ellison recount how Lauren and her son had escaped from the enraged Tony. Meanwhile, Lauren and Oscar trudged through the snow-covered field toward the road. They were exhausted, and to make matters worse, a heavy snowstorm began. If it weren't for her son, Lauren might have collapsed into the snow and given up on her life, which seemed meaningless to her. But she wasn't alone. Beside her was her son, the purpose of her life, the light at the end of the tunnel, the joy and sweetness of her soul. She had to fight to the end, not for herself, but for him. Lauren and her son made their way through the snowstorm, trudging through knee-deep snow for her and waist-deep for her small son. Just when her strength was failing, Lauren spotted the headlights of a car through the thick snow. She realized this was their chance. "Oscar, my dear, run to the car, or we will be lost in this field." Seeing his mother struggling to adjust his scarf with her numb fingers, the boy suddenly understood that he was the only one who could save them now. "I understand, Mommy, I understand. You stay here, don't go anywhere. I'll get help and come back for you." Lauren cried as she watched her little boy navigate the massive snowdrifts. "And that's how we ended up here, in the middle of this field in such a storm," Lauren concluded her heavy story to Adam. "Yeah, just like in a bad movie. Oscar fell asleep while we were talking. Poor thing, he was so scared. Why did you put up with it for so many years? That's no way to live. But anyway, it doesn't matter now. The important thing is that you and the little one are safe. And look, the storm has settled down, Adam said, looking out the window. Adam, I hate to impose, but could you drive us to the city? Of course, don't worry about it. It's on my way, but first, you need to go to the hospital. Look at your hands. Adam looked sympathetically at her hands, which she was using to tightly hug her son. With some difficulty, Adam managed to get back on the highway. They were about 200 kilometers from the city. Lauren fell asleep almost immediately. Adam carefully drove along the snowy road. He had plenty of time to think about the life situation of this stranger and her child. To be honest, he was shocked by the indifference of her sister and the people around her, who knew but kept silent about her suffering. Not my business, an all too common attitude in cities and towns alike. Adam glanced at his phone in surprise. Oddly enough, it had been silent for quite some time. Usually, Martha called every half hour. Is she mad? Adam wondered. No matter, he thought, she's in for a big surprise. Martha wasn't expecting him to come home today. Pulling into the city hospital, Adam hesitated before waking Lauren. Oscar was peacefully snuggled against Lauren, who hadn't loosened her grip on him the entire drive, holding him as if he were the most precious thing in the world. Adam's intense gaze eventually woke Lauren. Sorry, I fell asleep. Are we there yet? She asked, still groggy. Lauren, we agreed on you. No need for formalities. This is the hospital. I'm worried about your hands, face, and legs. Even though I can't see them, I bet they're not in good shape either. And Oscar should see a doctor just in case. Thank you for caring and not abandoning us. But I feel awkward going to the hospital. What will I say? How will I explain what happened? Don't worry about it. Let's go together. If everything is fine, I'll take you home. It feels awkward. It's not awkward, Lauren. After an examination, the doctor confirmed that Oscar was fine. He didn't have frostbite and was in good health. However, Lauren had serious issues from prolonged exposure to the cold, affecting her extremities and face. She needed immediate hospitalization to prevent worsening her condition. Doctor, I have no one to leave my son with. I can't stay in the hospital, Lauren said, almost crying. How can you say that? You risk becoming permanently disabled. Young man, who are you to the patient? Maybe you could look after the child? Yes, I can. Lauren, don't worry. Oscar will be safe, warm, and fed. You focus on getting better. I'll give you my number. Call anytime you need. And if you need anything, just let me know, Adam said, cutting off the elderly doctor. Oscar, this is how it has to be, son. Mommy, you get better. I'll go with this nice man and wait for you. See, there's no need to cry. Give me your sister's address. I'll explain the situation to her. Maybe she can take care of Oscar until you're discharged. If not, Oscar and I will manage. My fiancé and future mother-in-law are waiting for me at home, so don't worry. We'll visit you tomorrow. Lauren kissed her son, and as soon as the door closed behind them, she fell into a deep sleep. The doctor gave Adam a list of necessary medications for Lauren's quick recovery. Adam hurried to the hospital pharmacy. Doctor, here's everything on the list, Adam said, handing over a bag of medicines. Thank you. You see, the hospital is barely funded. We're running low on everything: antiseptics, bandages, painkillers. And don't forget to bring her slippers, a robe, a t-shirt, and sweatpants tomorrow. Of course. We'll be back tomorrow. Adam decided not to waste any time and headed straight to Vanessa's place. The door remained unanswered for a long time. Adam persistently rang the bell for 5 minutes. Just as he was about to leave with Oscar, he heard footsteps behind the door. Who is it? Gary, did you lose your keys? The door swung open, revealing a young, attractive woman who looked at the stranger and child with a confused expression. "Who are you here to see?" she asked in an annoyed tone. "Hello, I need to speak with Vanessa." "Is that you?" "Yes, I am Vanessa." "What's this about?" "Your sister is in the hospital with frostbite. This is your nephew Oscar, Lauren's son." "So what? Why are you telling me this? And who are you, anyway?" Vanessa asked, bewildered. "I'm a stranger who happened to help your sister and her son from freezing to death in a snowy field. Now, while Lauren is in the hospital, Oscar needs somewhere to stay. She couldn't reach you, so she gave me this address. Is this Lauren's apartment?" "Listen, stranger, Lauren is an adult and can handle her own issues. Are you suggesting I take in someone else's child? This apartment has been mine for years. We settled everything long ago, and I'm not discussing this with you. So, what about the boy? Take him to an orphanage. He'll be much better off there than with that kind of mother," Vanessa said with disdain. Oscar unexpectedly grabbed Adam's hand and took a step back, hiding from Vanessa's hostile gaze. "You should have been put in an orphanage yourself." "Goodbye," Adam said coldly. "Come on, Oscar." "Yeah, get out before I call the police." "Look at you." Vanessa yelled after them, but Adam was already thinking about other things. "Did she scare you?" "Don't worry, Oscar, we're going to my place now. Martha will cook us something delicious, we'll rest, and tomorrow we'll go see your mom. We also need to stop by the store and get her some things. Thanks for not taking me to the orphanage." "Of course not," Adam said with a smile, patting the boy's head. Leaving the truck parked overnight on the road, Adam and Oscar hurried to his house. Snow was falling heavily again, creating a picturesque scene, but the recent events left Adam with little holiday spirit. He looked at the dark windows of his house with surprise. Martha had said she would be home celebrating with her mother and daughter. Maybe they're already asleep, he thought. The closer he got to the house, the more his anxiety grew. At the door, as he took out his keys, his hands began to tremble with a sense of foreboding. Turning the key in the lock, Adam pushed the door open and hesitantly stepped inside. At first glance, it seemed like no one was home. But when he turned on the light, he saw unfamiliar shoes that clearly didn't belong to Martha. "Oscar, come in, take off your coat, and go to the living room. Turn on the TV, and I'll be with you in a minute. I just need to call Martha and find out where she is." The boy obediently went to the living room, and Adam was about to dial Martha's number when he heard strange sounds coming from the bedroom. He froze, feeling like he was in a bad dream. As he approached the door, he heard Martha's whisper. "Hurry up and get dressed. Damn, he wasn't supposed to be back today. Move faster." Adam pushed the door open and burst into loud laughter at the sight before him. Well, Martha, great job. And you, Taylor, you're a real piece of work." "Martha, I get it, you're used to betrayal, but you, Taylor? How could you put desire above friendship? Anyway, it's for the best. Consider it a Christmas gift from my fiancé and my friend. You have 5 minutes to get your things and get out of my house, or I'll help you out myself. Time's ticking." Adam left the bedroom with a smile, a defense mechanism against the stress he was experiencing. Oddly, he didn't feel anger or pain. Maybe because his suspicions about Martha were confirmed. He'd been hesitant to marry her, and it seemed that was for the best. The lack of pain indicated that he probably didn't love her. Adam was more concerned about Lauren's health. He hoped she would recover soon and reunite with her son. But how would she live now? Vanessa would likely resist letting her back into the apartment. "We'll manage," Adam thought, entering the room where the boy was. "Are you okay? Martha will be gone soon, and we can make some fried potatoes. Do you like potatoes?" Adam smiled at Oscar. "Sure do. Mom often makes fried potatoes, and I love meatballs too." "I can handle the potatoes, but you'll have to wait for your mom for the meatballs," Adam laughed. Martha knew there was no point in trying to explain or justify herself. Adam had a kind heart, was patient and generous, often compromising. But he could never forgive betrayal and deceit. So, quietly and without any fuss, the pair who had betrayed both love and friendship left Adam's house. Despite the late hour, Adam and Oscar devoured fried potatoes and sweet tea. They chatted about various things, joked, and made plans for the next day. After dinner, they settled on the couch to watch a Christmas movie. When the film ended, Adam noticed Oscar had fallen asleep with his head on his shoulder. Not wanting to wake him, Adam covered him with a warm blanket and closed his eyes, falling asleep next to him. The next morning, Adam and Oscar felt perfectly at ease with each other. After breakfast, they went to the mall to buy essential items for Lauren and some for Oscar. They also picked up some toy cars and a construction set to make the evenings more enjoyable while Lauren was in the hospital. Adam decided that while Lauren was recovering, he would take care of Oscar. They got along well. "Mom. Mommy." Oscar exclaimed joyfully as he entered the hospital room. "My dear boy. I've missed you so much." Lauren replied. "And guess what, Mom? Adam and I got you some presents." "Hello, Lauren, how are you feeling? You don't look too well, is it painful?" Adam asked, noticing her bandaged hands, feet, and face. "Hi, thanks for asking. I'm feeling better. The doctor says I need to keep the bandages on for a few more days to help the ointment work faster," Lauren replied, embarrassed by her appearance and looking away. "These are for you. I hope we got the right size." Adam placed a bag of clothes by Lauren's bed, and she teared up. "Thank you. I'll pay you back, I feel so bad about all this trouble," Lauren said. "There you go again. If you keep crying, we won't visit you anymore," Adam joked. "I enjoy spending time with Oscar. He's a great kid, and he makes things more fun." "So Oscar stayed with you? Did you visit Vanessa?" Lauren asked, confused. "That woman wanted to put me in an orphanage, but Adam took me in," Oscar said bitterly. "What? How could she? Calm down, you need to rest. We'll figure everything out once you're better. For now, just focus on getting well. I'm quitting my job and moving back home. The city hasn't been good to me, but don't worry, I'll take care of Oscar for as long as needed. I won't abandon you." "Thank you, Adam. I feel so bad about all this trouble. What about your fiancé? Is this because of us?" "Sorry, it's none of my business. It's not about you and your son. I found Martha with her lover when we got home. That's why I'm quitting. We worked together. Honestly, I'm glad it turned out this way. Anyway, you get better. The doctor only allowed us 5 minutes. I bought all the necessary medicine, so don't worry. We'll visit you tomorrow." Adam and Lauren developed a close friendship over the next 2 weeks. Every day, Adam and Oscar visited Lauren while she received intensive treatment. After spending 14 days with the cheerful boy, Adam found it hard to imagine his life without him. With Lauren and Oscar in his life, everything felt brighter. Adam now knew what he wanted from life and was confident that this time, things would work out. On the 15th day, the doctor announced that the worst was over. Thanks to the ointment Adam found, there were no signs of frostbite on Lauren's skin, hands, or feet. Her bandages were removed, and she admired her reflection in the mirror. When Adam and Oscar visited her in the hospital, they clapped their hands in joy. "Mommy, you look so beautiful," Oscar exclaimed. "I agree, Oscar. You're a real beauty. I spoke with the doctor. A few more days, and you'll be home. We'll prepare a special dinner to celebrate your return," Adam said. "Thank you so much, my dear ones," Lauren said, blushing. "My dear ones," echoed in her mind all day. Such simple words, but they warmed her heart. On the day of her discharge, Lauren was greeted at the entrance by Oscar and Adam, holding a bouquet of flowers and a chocolate cake. Lauren, touched by the pleasant events, began to cry again. Adam took the opportunity to joke and encourage the beautiful young woman. Adam's apartment was filled with balloons, and a pleasant aroma wafted from the kitchen throughout the house. "Mommy, how did we do?" "Adam and I worked really hard," Oscar said excitedly. "You both did amazing. I'm so touched." "Honestly, I've never had a celebration like this," Lauren said gratefully, looking into Adam's eyes. She was thankful for his help and support, for not turning away from her troubles. As the saying goes, all good things must come to an end. After the festive meal, when Oscar went off to play, Lauren and Adam discussed their next steps. Lauren thanked Adam for his kindness and his involvement in her life issues and informed him that she and her son would be returning to their home today. The apartment was legally hers, Vanessa was registered there, and she had the right to live in it. As much as the three of them didn't want to part, it was time to say goodbye. Lauren declined Adam's offer of help, deciding she needed to handle her sister and finally settle the apartment matter herself. "Adam, thank you for everything. You know my address, my door is always open for you. I'm always happy to see you. Thanks again for everything you've done for my son and me," Lauren said, standing at the door. She didn't want to part with this smart, kind, and courageous man who had been the only one to help in her time of need. "Adam, why can't we stay with you?" "I don't want to leave," Oscar said, hugging the man. Adam couldn't utter a word. The lump in his throat made it hard to speak and even breathe. Gathering his willpower, Adam finally smiled. "Oscar, we will definitely meet again. I promised to teach you how to ride a bike, remember?" "You promise?" "I give you my word," Adam said, turning to Lauren. "May I ask you something?" "Of course, anything," Lauren said, feeling hopeful. "Here's a second set of keys to my apartment. I'll be going back to my parents' home, but if anything goes wrong, you and your son can stay here. Please, Lauren, take the keys. It will give me peace of mind." Lauren took the keys. Adam ruffled Oscar's hair, and as the elevator doors closed behind the woman and child, Adam slid down the wall to the floor, holding his head in his hands. Thoughts swirled in his mind, and recent events had significantly changed his worldview. He decided to waste no time and go to his family. Adam needed advice from his mother. Mrs. Bronson was a wise woman who always understood her son and never gave bad advice, even though Adam didn't always listen. In hindsight, he realized she tried to protect him, but he hadn't listened. Now, he needed her advice more than ever. Lauren approached her family home, her heart pounding with anxiety and anticipation. Ahead lay a difficult conversation with her sister. At the entrance, she saw her late mother's longtime friend, Aunt Olivia, who had supported Lauren and Vanessa after their parents' deaths. When Lauren greeted her, Olivia tensed, but then, realizing who it was, rushed to hug her. "Lauren, look at you. And is this young man your son?" Olivia asked. "Hello, Aunt Olivia. It's so good to see you." "Yes, this is my son. We've come home for good," Lauren explained. Olivia looked down after hearing this. "You probably don't know. It's going to be tough. Vanessa has changed a lot. Gary runs the household now, doing whatever he wants. Vanessa doesn't say a word against him. When he goes on a binge, he brings women into the house. Your foolish sister cries on the bench until morning." "Well, we'll see about that, Aunt Olivia. I own the apartment. Gary will be out of my home in a flash. I was too soft back then, letting Vanessa take advantage. But there's no point dwelling on the past," Lauren said, looking at her son and smiling. "If I hadn't left, I wouldn't have Oscar. He's the meaning of my life. I've been through so much, I'm not afraid of anything anymore. Go on, dear. If you need anything, you and your son are welcome at my place. Do come by." "Thank you. We will visit you, but a bit later. We need to settle in first." After saying goodbye to the neighbor, Lauren and her son went up to their floor. Nothing had changed, the same walls, the same doors, as if she had never left. She pressed the doorbell, straightened her shoulders, and lifted her chin. "Who's there now?" Vanessa's voice came from the other side of the door. "It's me, open up," Lauren replied calmly. There was silence behind the door, and it became clear that Vanessa was looking at her sister through the peephole. Vanessa, how long do you want me and my son to stand outside? The lock clicked, and the door swung open. Vanessa stood there, looking bewildered, clearly not expecting this encounter. You? What do you want? I mean, are you staying long? Vanessa stammered. What a warm welcome, I must say. Vanessa, I'm here to stay. Meet my son, your nephew, Oscar. Now, could you step aside so we can come in? Lauren asked in a calm tone. Why didn't you call? Don't play dumb. I called you many times. Your number has been disconnected for a long time. Vanessa, what's going on? Lauren resolutely stepped over the threshold of her own home, holding her son's hand firmly. Vanessa stepped back in surprise. Lauren, what are you doing? Are you here to ruin my life? Don't you care about me, barging in like this and tearing down everything I've built over the years? And did you care about my son? How could you, Vanessa? I didn't send you to an orphanage. I loved you, protected you, even left home so as not to interfere with your personal life. And you erased me from your life. Vanessa, I lived in slavery for so many years. No, I don't feel sorry for you. And what have you built? Where is it? You've lived without me for so many years, so you can manage your life from now on. You're an adult now. Our parents loved you very much. And in their memory, I'm being fair. I'll sell the apartment, you'll get your share. Live as you see fit. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Which room can my son and I stay in? Stunned, Vanessa pointed to the far room. Then she quickly ran to the room where her partner Gary was. In all these years, he had never bothered to take Vanessa to the registry office to legalize their relationship. Gary, wake up, Lauren's back. Who? Which Lauren? Back where? My sister, something didn't work out for her, she's going to live with us until she sells the apartment. Are you crazy? Sell the apartment? Why did you let her in at all? I told you we should have taken her off the registry. Gary flew into a rage upon hearing this news. All right, I'm leaving and won't come back until you sort out this mess with your sister. And who told her to show up here anyway? Gary, please, don't leave. We'll figure something out. I'm begging you, where are you going? Somewhere where I'm appreciated as a man. Gary, please stay, I'll handle it. A knock sounded at the room door, and the couple fell silent. What's going on here? Vanessa, why are you kneeling in front of him? This is all because of you. Why did you come back? I hate you. You won't get the apartment. Gary's leaving me because of you. Vanessa, what's wrong with you? It's obvious he only cares about the apartment. Get out of my house, out of my life. Vanessa, you'll regret these words one day. I only regret that you're my sister. But thanks. Don't worry. We'll sell the apartment and go our separate ways. Lauren left her sister's room, then locked herself in the bathroom and cried for a long time, Vanessa's words cutting her heart deeply. A week flew by. Oscar and Lauren lived alone in the apartment. Vanessa and her partner left the premises in protest, their whereabouts unknown. During this time, Lauren posted an ad on a real estate site, putting the apartment up for sale. She also filed for divorce. Their neighbor, Olivia, was a frequent visitor to Lauren's home. When she learned everything that Lauren had been through, she couldn't hold back her tears. Poor thing, poor thing. Why did you endure so many years? Why didn't you come back? I had no money at all. And I didn't want to interfere with my sister's life. I had resigned myself to my fate, but then I realized I didn't want to live like that anymore. Neither my mother-in-law nor Tony ever loved my son. Mom, when will Adam come back? Oscar's question caught Lauren off guard. Olivia raised her eyebrows in surprise and looked at Oscar. He promised to teach me how to ride a bike, added the boy. Well, if he promised, he will. A real man never breaks his word, Olivia replied, noticing how uneasy Lauren looked at her son's question. All right, kids, I'm going home now, but I'll come by in the evening with some pies. We'll be happy to see you. We're staying in today. Oscar has started coughing a bit. So come by anytime, Lauren said as she walked her neighbor to the door. As soon as the door closed, Lauren sat in the chair by the window, deep in thought. Life seemed so unfair sometimes. Why do good men always end up with undeserving women and vice versa? She felt sad thinking about the happy days spent with Adam. Oscar had been truly happy, and so had she. She forgot about her problems when she was with Adam. Maybe if they had met under different circumstances. But why would he want her, especially with a child in tow? Adam was a kind, smart, good man and would surely find a deserving woman, one without such a past. Lauren mused, watching the snowflakes fall outside. A persistent doorbell interrupted her thoughts. She jumped up from the chair, thinking it was Adam returning for the keys. Looking through the peephole, she saw a female figure and sighed in disappointment. Probably Aunt Olivia forgot something, she thought as she opened the door. Hi, sis, I'm here to apologize. I was wrong, you've done so much for me, and I've been ungrateful. Vanessa, what's with the theatrics? I forgave you a long time ago. I've listed the apartment for sale, so you'll get your share soon and can live happily with your fiancé, Lauren replied indifferently and stepped back, ready to close the door. But Vanessa burst into tears. I have nowhere to go. Gary left me. I'm all alone now. Lauren, forgive me. You're right, I deserved all this. I won't bother you anymore. Vanessa turned to leave, but Lauren stopped her. Wait, Vanessa, you're not alone. I love you very much, my little sister. Vanessa turned back and, sobbing bitterly, threw herself into Lauren's arms. For the first time in a long time, Lauren felt significant in Vanessa's life. She decided not to abandon her naive, trusting little sister in her time of need. So, shall we go home? Let's go. I even brought a bottle of wine with me. Let's have a drink to our reunion. We need to relax a bit. I also have juice and chocolate for my nephew. Vanessa noticeably cheered up and handed the bag to her sister. As soon as they entered the apartment, Lauren handed the bag back to Vanessa. Go ahead, take off your coat and come in. I'll check on Oscar. It's been very quiet. He's been unwell since morning, probably asleep. When Lauren returned to the kitchen and closed the door behind her, Vanessa guessed that the child was asleep. The young woman took a bottle of wine from her shiny gift bag. Let's celebrate your freedom and our reconciliation. Lauren began to refuse, it wasn't the right time to celebrate. Her son was unwell, and she needed to resolve the apartment issue. But Vanessa insisted. Not wanting to upset her sister, with whom she had just reconciled, Lauren agreed. All right, just a little bit. Oh, you've already opened the wine? Lauren was surprised to see the cork protruding from the bottle's neck. No, of course not. You won't believe it, but when I was leaving Gary, the first thing I grabbed was my favorite Georgian wine. Lauren laughed. You're something else. The wine was poured into glasses. Cheers, sis. Bottoms up, Vanessa said cheerfully but accidentally dropped her glass. The wine spilled over the kitchen table and onto the floor, filling the room with the smell of alcohol. Oops, my bad, Vanessa said, sounding apologetic. It's okay, I'll clean it up, Lauren muttered, finishing her glass and noticing that her speech was starting to slur. She reached for a rag, but to her surprise, her body refused to cooperate. Her eyes clouded over, the room spun, and she struggled to stay upright. She tried to focus, but everything was blurry, and her limbs felt heavy and unresponsive. What's happening to me? She muttered, trying to stand up in confusion. The last thing Lauren clearly remembered was her sister's concerned face. Vanessa quickly grabbed her smartphone and dialed someone. To ensure Lauren couldn't hear her conversation, she stepped out of the kitchen. The noise from the kitchen woke Oscar, and as the sleepy boy walked into the kitchen, the doorbell rang. Moments later, the kitchen was filled with strangers. In her foggy state, Lauren could only catch snippets of their conversations. The child is sick, hungry, and in a dangerous environment. Then, in her semi-conscious state, she heard footsteps leaving the kitchen. "Look at her, drunk as a skunk," said a voice, as someone shook her. Lauren slumped back onto the couch. "It reeks of alcohol here, we'll have to take the child." Lauren then heard Vanessa's voice. "Yes, she's a heavy drinker. I came to visit my nephew, and she's in a drunken stupor." Whether it was her imagination or not, Lauren distinctly saw Adam's worried face among the uninvited visitors. Unable to muster the strength to get up, she drifted into a deep, anxious sleep. A void. She was falling. Darkness and fear. Her head throbbed painfully, her eyelids felt like they were made of lead and wouldn't open. Lauren cracked her eyes open slightly, but the bright sunlight streaming through the window made her head hurt even more. Blinking several times, she managed to open her eyes and look around. There was no doubt she was in a hospital room. Her entire body ached. Lauren felt every muscle. Sensing the warmth of a hand firmly holding hers, Lauren turned her head and, startled, pulled her hand away. "Thank God. I leave for just a week, and you're back in the hospital." "I can't leave you alone for a minute," Adam whispered, waking up and seeing Lauren had opened her eyes. "Why am I here? Where is Oscar?" "Don't worry, Oscar is with Aunt Olivia. It's all over now, and everything will be all right. Don't cry, please. I won't let anyone hurt you ever again. Don't go, please." Lauren weakly squeezed his hand and fell back asleep. When Vanessa and Gary left the apartment where Lauren and her son had been staying, Gary immediately laid down conditions for his partner. Knowing Vanessa would do anything to keep him from leaving her, Gary spent the week preparing everything for the upcoming setup. He had connections in criminal circles, so it wasn't hard for him to find the right people to help frame Lauren for alcohol addiction. They staged it so that Vanessa would appear to be visiting her nephew, only to find Lauren in a drunken state, the child left to fend for himself in a messy home. The child services, generously paid off by Gary, were supposed to take the child from his alcoholic mother, who was allegedly passed out drunk. And then, Gary was sure that Lauren would be more cooperative and, in the interest of reuniting with her son, would have no problem making her sister the owner of the apartment. She would also sign away her share of their parents' apartment. Naturally, all of this had to be notarized. That's why Vanessa had come so unexpectedly to apologize to her sister with a bottle of wine, having previously added the drug given to her by Gary. Perhaps the pair of scoundrels would have succeeded in their plan if Adam hadn't arrived that very day. His arrival disrupted their scheme. When Adam approached Lauren's door, he heard Oscar crying. He then overheard Vanessa on the phone, reporting that she had done everything as instructed, but Lauren had completely lost control after drinking. Vanessa anxiously asked her caller if they might have overdosed her, and that's when Adam burst into the apartment and saw the chaos. His first move was to call the neighbors to witness the unfolding drama, and then he called an ambulance and the police. 3 months had passed since that terrible event. "Lauren, well, it's time to say goodbye, my dear." Olivia hugged Lauren, crying on her shoulder. "Please don't cry. I am so grateful to you for everything, for your support, and for standing up for me in court. Once I settle down, I'll call you. Oscar and I will visit you. Oh, my dear girl, I so hope this dark chapter of your life is finally over. You have such a kind soul. I still don't understand why you gave half of the money from the apartment sale to that ungrateful sister of yours. Not only did you ask the court not to imprison her, but you also gave her money. Aunt Olivia, my conscience is clear before my parents. I did it in their memory. Dad and Mom loved Vanessa very much. You did the right thing, Lauren. You grew up to be fair and wise. Not like that little ingrate. At least they gave her the sentence she deserved. Adam did a good job hearing and preventing the tragedy. By the way, has he been in touch? No. After I was discharged from the hospital, he confessed his love to me. He said I was the kind of woman he had always dreamed of. But then, while Oscar and I were staying with him, his first wife and daughter showed up. We started packing to leave because we felt out of place there, you understand? Adam was in a state of shock at their arrival. Antonia, his ex-wife, is still a beautiful woman, despite her age. And his daughter must be about 15 now. He hadn't seen them in a long time. He promised to explain everything, but he probably reconciled with his family. Finishing her sentence, Lauren began to cry bitterly. Oh, don't cry, sweetie. Have you thought about going to him? Maybe something happened. Olivia hugged Lauren, stroking her hair like a little girl. The young woman cried even harder. I love him, you know? I've never loved anyone like I love Adam. Every night I dreamed of a family, but now that will never be. I want to go far away, somewhere in the woods or even further, to live with my son alone. I don't need anyone else. Can I come with you? Hearing Adam's voice behind her, Lauren thought she was losing her mind. Turning around, she saw him standing there with a suitcase on wheels. Oscar, who had been playing on the playground, saw Adam and ran towards him. Jumping into his arms, the boy hugged him tightly around the neck. I knew you'd come, I knew it. You promised to teach me how to ride a bike. And men always keep their word, right, Grandma Olivia? The boy looked at the woman, and she nodded affirmatively, wiping tears of joy from her face. Yes, sweetheart, that's right. Mama, why are you just standing there? Come here, Oscar exclaimed joyfully. Lauren, not believing what was happening, practically ran to Adam. Resting her head on his shoulder, she sighed with relief. Adam held Oscar with one arm and tightly embraced the woman he loved with the other. Forgive me for disappearing without explanation. I was sorting out the paperwork for my daughter's apartment. I don't know her well. Antonia took Laura away when she was just a baby. Now something didn't work out for them, and they ended up on the street. Antonia means nothing to me anymore, but I couldn't leave my daughter out in the cold. Their sudden reappearance in my life turned out to be for the best. I've let go of the past. I'm at peace knowing my daughter is okay, and I can start a new life. I don't know if you can understand, but Laura and I are strangers to each other. For 15 years, she thought another man was her father. Lauren, I've realized that I love you, more than I've ever loved anyone. Marry me. I'll be a faithful friend to Oscar and do everything I can to make you the happiest person in the entire universe. Will you marry me? Are you even asking? Of course, I will. You did the right thing for your daughter, you're a real man, Lauren replied, looking directly into his eyes. Then let's go home. We can catch the last bus. Trust me and don't be afraid, Adam said, throwing Lauren's bag over his shoulder. Lauren trusted him. She was sure that now she and her son were under the reliable protection of a loving and beloved person. Saying goodbye, Olivia watched the happy figures of the people walking away. When they disappeared around the corner, she headed home. At the entrance, she met Vanessa, who was hiding behind a tree, crying. Why are you crying now, shameless? Why did you come? You got what you wanted. Your sister will never appear in your life again. Want some advice? Before your thug takes your money, buy a place to live. A hotel room will do, or a room in a shared apartment, otherwise you'll end up on the street. Aunt Olivia, I'll do that. But can I come by sometimes? Just to talk. Vanessa couldn't stop the flow of tears streaming down her cheeks. It was clear she regretted what she had done, but she didn't have the courage to ask her sister for forgiveness. Oh, you fool, of course, you can come. At least your mother isn't here to see what you've done. Stop crying. Let's have some tea. What else can I do with you? Sitting on the bus, Lauren was confident for the first time in her life that she was doing the right thing. Arriving in Adam's hometown, the young woman was pleasantly surprised to see that his village was more like an upscale suburban community, full of life and activity. The village was thriving. Through the taxi window, As they made their way to the bus station, Lauren looked at the local sights with interest and admiration. The village had several large stores, a mini-market, a beauty salon, and, as Adam mentioned, even a working movie theater. There were a few cafes and a restaurant. The kindergarten and school were fully functional, and there were plenty of young people and children in the village. Adam, I never thought people could live like this in a village, Lauren said with admiration. They can, if they want to. Our village is considered the richest in the area. We have working farms, a thriving sawmill, and even several manufacturing businesses. So there's work and a good life, Adam replied, smiling and hugging Lauren around the shoulders. Lauren didn't expect such a reception from Adam's parents. Mrs. Bronson, seeing her son at the gate with a woman and a child, immediately guessed who he had brought. Running out to meet them, she burst into tears. Son, I'm so glad. And your father is at the plant. Why didn't you let us know you were coming? Mom, don't worry, we'll have plenty of time to see Dad and catch up. Remember I promised I'd come back home and bring my wife with me? Well, this is my fiancé, Lauren, and this is our Oscar. Please, welcome them. I remember, my dear boy. You're glowing. Your happiness is what matters most, Mrs. Bronson whispered in her son's ear, hugging him. Then she let go of Adam and approached Lauren and Oscar. Well, dear children, welcome home. Adam has talked our ears off about you. Please, come in. Mrs. Bronson hugged her future daughter-in-law and, taking Oscar by the hand, led him on a tour of the yard. Adam, the keys to your half of the house are in the usual place. We'll be outside with Oscar while you show Lauren around the house. Lauren felt like she was dreaming. A young woman who had known so much sorrow in life never thought fate would reward her so richly for her suffering. Mr. Bronson greeted his son and family as warmly as his wife did. Adam's parents remembered how they helped him recover after a failed marriage and, seeing the joy in the eyes of this happy trio, they were sure things would be different this time, genuine and full of love. Lauren had no intention of idly sitting by. After their grand wedding and returning from their honeymoon, she shared her plans with her husband. She wanted to open her own bakery. Adam supported her, but she refused to take any money from him or his parents. The funds from selling her apartment covered her dream's expenses. Mr. and Mrs. Bronson supported their daughter-in-law and helped with the paperwork. With their connections, obtaining the necessary permits wasn't difficult. Summer flew by in pleasant busyness. Autumn arrived. Lauren frequently called Aunt Olivia, sharing her joys. She never asked about her sister, but Aunt Olivia would casually update her on Vanessa's life. Lauren never interrupted or inquired further. The weather was beautiful. Oscar was riding his bike under Adam's watchful eye. The boy was thrilled that his dream had come true. With the first snow came joyful news for their happy family. During a family dinner, Lauren announced that they were expecting another child. Mrs. Bronson cried with joy, and even Mr. Bronson couldn't hold back his tears. A few days before New Year's, Lauren received a troubling phone call. She had been regularly talking with Grandma Allison, the kind neighbor who once saved her. They had long phone conversations. Lauren sent her care packages with gifts, sweets, and sometimes medicine to support the elderly woman's health. Lauren never forgot the kindness Grandma Allison showed her and knew the lonely woman needed companionship and love, as she was all alone in the world. But this time, Grandma Allison's call was different. She called to say goodbye. Lauren was so worried she couldn't stay still. Adam suggested they visit the elderly woman immediately. He knew Lauren would never forgive herself if she didn't try to help the woman who played such an important role in her life. Thanks to Grandma Allison, Lauren met her true love and destiny. Adam set the GPS for the village they needed and they embarked on their journey. The road was long, 300 kilometers one way. They wisely left Oscar with Adam's parents. The boy considered them his grandparents and always enjoyed staying with them. When they arrived in the village, Lauren's chest tightened with memories of her past life. This village was very different from where she happily lived now. They approached the right house, and Lauren hurried inside with Adam following. Grandma Allison lay in the dim light on her couch. On a stool by her bedside, Lauren saw many medicines and sighed with relief as she got closer. "Grandma Allison, you really scared me." "Adam, turn on the light," said Lauren. The man complied, and the elderly woman, though frail, seemed to come alive with the visit. Overwhelmed, Grandma Allison began to cry. "I'm sorry, Lauren, for troubling you. My heart started acting up, and I got so scared that I wouldn't see you again or get to say goodbye. Besides you and Oscar, I have no one. But then the medic came, gave me a shot, and some medicine from my cabinet. I feel better now. I tried calling you, but the weather is terrible, the snowstorm disrupted the signal," the elderly woman explained. Lauren understood how lonely it was for Grandma Allison in that house, and how hard it was to keep the stove going at her age. She looked at Adam, who smiled, sensing her thoughts without needing words. "I'll wait outside," Adam said. "Don't lift anything heavy. Call me if you need help." As Adam stepped outside, Lauren took Grandma Allison's hand. "Shall we go home? It would give me peace of mind. Oscar misses you and talks about you often. You wouldn't be alone anymore. Please, come with us." "Lauren, what use would I be there? But this Adam of yours seems like a good man, a handsome one too," Grandma Allison replied. "Grandma Allison, Adam is the best. His parents are wonderful people, kind and warm. So, are you ready? We're expecting another edition soon, and I could really use your help. I'm opening a bakery soon, everything is almost set up. Adam and his parents are busy with their own work, and I'll miss you a lot. Plus, it would ease my mind knowing you're with us. You've done so much for me when my own family turned away." Grandma Allison cried. There was nothing keeping her in the village anymore, just loneliness and sorrow. "I agree. You are my only family now. Sometimes strangers become the closest family. Your Tony kicked his mother out of the house, you know? The city girl left him after finding out he beat you and attacked me. He got it from me and the neighbors. Spent a night in jail and came begging for forgiveness the next morning. I gave him a good scolding and sent him away. He started drinking heavily, then brought a girl from the farm to live with him. They fought with Haley so much the whole village knew. Eventually, he chose the girl over his mother. Now Miss Thompson lives in the barn while he reigns in the house with his new woman. Serves them right. He's ruined, and she's stuck in the barn for the rest of her days." Lauren listened to Grandma Allison without a hint of gloating, but she didn't feel sorry for them either. They got what they deserved for their cold hearts. When Lauren stepped out to call Adam, she was surprised by the crowd gathered outside. The villagers recognized her as Haley's former daughter-in-law and admired her for not abandoning the elderly woman who had been kind to her. Even Tony and his mother had come to see. Tony looked unkempt and smelled bad, glaring at Lauren, filled with regret for losing someone he never valued. He regretted everything but knew nothing could be undone. When Adam started the car, Tony mustered the courage to speak. "How's the boy?" he asked loudly, stepping toward Lauren. Adam reacted instantly, ready to confront the man who had tormented his beloved for so long. But Lauren, understanding the situation, grabbed his hand. "Don't dirty your hands. Life has already punished him enough," she whispered. Adam smiled, kissed her cheek, and replied, "You're right as always." He helped Grandma Allison into the car and took the driver's seat. Lauren turned to Tony and calmly said, "My son is fine, thank you. But you don't have a son anymore. You never made room for him in your heart. Goodbye." As the car pulled away, some villagers cried, whispering among themselves. Lauren noticed Miss Thompson crying bitterly in the background. Lauren placed her hand on Adam's shoulder. "Thank you, my love. For everything. Thank fate for bringing us together," Adam replied, kissing her hand. On New Year's Eve, the home was filled with the festive spirit of miracles. Grandma Allison, probably for the first time in her life, felt genuinely happy. She now had a family that respected and loved her. As the clock struck midnight, each person wished for happiness and peace for the family, hoping all the bad remained in the past. Their greatest wish had already come true, they were together, happy, and loved, and that was the most important thing. Time passed. Every year, Grandma Allison spent 2 weeks in the hospital for supportive therapy, which kept her healthy for the entire year. Mr. and Mrs. Bronson loved their daughter-in-law as their own. They were amazed by her kindness, honesty, and work ethic. Their son was happy, and that was what mattered most. Lauren gave birth to a healthy boy named Ethan, who is now 3 years old. Oscar loved his brother. The boys were inseparable, always together. Oscar excelled in school, making his family proud. He had long called Adam's dad, and sincerely believed it was true. Adam treated both boys equally, spending as much time with them as his busy schedule allowed. Despite raising 2 children, Lauren achieved incredible success in her business. Her bakery became famous in the area, and she considered opening another one. Grandma Allison, living in a loving family surrounded by good people, seemed to rejuvenate by 10 years. She tended to the flower beds in the yard, with Mrs. Bronson's help. The adults got along wonderfully, living as one big, happy family, grateful to fate for bringing them together under one roof in a house filled with love, happiness, and harmony. Often in the evenings, after the children were asleep, Adam and Lauren would sit on their porch, drinking tea, sharing their day's events, celebrating their successes, and gazing at the stars. This evening was no different. Adam wrapped a blanket around Lauren's shoulders and settled next to her on the wicker couch. "I love you. You are my life," Adam whispered in her ear. "And you are mine," Lauren replied, wrapping her arms around her beloved man, who had forever changed her life with his sudden appearance. Now Lauren was sure that even after the darkest night, dawn would always come. The key was to believe in it. 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 Believe in it.